The New York Giants back on the practice field this week following the holiday weekend. And head coach Brian Daboll far from being ready to release any sort of depth chart, but we are paying attention to how the coaches have been integrating certain players into certain lineups. We got to find some clues there. It's their final week of OTAs ahead of their mandatory minicamp, which runs June 7th through the 9th at the team's East Rutherford, New Jersey headquarters. And reporting to us from Giants OTAs, Josina Anderson. Welcome to CBS Sports HQ. Now, Josina, you're holding it down for us in East Rutherford. What did you see at practice today? Anything noteworthy that caught your attention?
Well, it's very interesting because even though I know I've been here since Odell was last here in 2018, that's what kept sticking out in my mind. Boy, has so much changed even since Odell was here. Obviously, having a new head coach in Brian Daboll, who I had an opportunity to sit down with and talk to before practice started. I think that's what just jumps out me is just the instant gloss that he puts on this team, bringing over Mike Kafka at offensive coordinator, and then Daniel Jones walks over, and I think just kind of noticing his stature, and he looks a little bit more filled in, and watching him out there on the field, you can see that he has just kind of more comfort in his skin as quarterback of this team. But one of the things that Brian Daboll told me in our conversation before practice is one of the things that he's also trying to remind himself of is that it's going to take time. In the years that he was offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen starting off there with 5 wins, it took some time to go from there and then obviously jump to 10 wins. But the subsequent last 3 years, they were in the playoffs, and hopefully they have that kind of fortune because since this team was 11-5 in 2016, they haven't won more than 6 games. So there's just so much work to be done. I mean, even with Daniel Jones and watching him out there with the offense, you have guys out there as far as at the wide receiver position, their rookie Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, you also have C.J. Board and David Sills, who was an experienced veteran of that group because just so many guys are injured. So while there is a lot of promise based on the stature of the coaches that they have on this staff, including Whit Martindale, who's coming over from the Ravens at defensive coordinator, there's definitely a lot of work to do, but optimism. So that sticks out.
I want to ask you about Saquon Barkley here. He entered the NFL as a supposed generational talent. After that promising first season, though, he's been anything but elite. So what did you see from him today?
Well, I had an opportunity to talk to Saquon Barkley right after practice and wanted to catch up with him, especially as one of the guys that I recognize from being out here before. But as you know, he had that ACL injury in 2020, dealt with an ankle injury last year. That's why he only had about 593 rushing yards. But he told me, I feel like myself again. It feels like a fresh start. He said that I'm very excited and Daboll is creating this competitive environment. And he's not concerned that you're not seeing Kenny Galladay out there right now, who is not obviously participating in team drills. And Sterling Shepard, who we'll talk about, is still recovering from his injury. He said there's still a lot of possibilities once everybody gets back on this field in full. One of the things I did notice out there with him at practice is the fact that they're using him as a wide receiver. He said, yes, they're going to be using me out of the backfield, out of the slot. He's working on his routes. He's talking to the wide receivers and the wide receivers coaches, trying to get, even more advice as he works his routes and make sure that he's available for Daboll in that capacity, because quite frankly, they're going to need to do everything that they can do to create offense, particularly with the way that they're trying to build off of not being in the playoffs and just being a better postseason contender, quite frankly.
Yeah, definitely trying to get this offense going. You mentioned the wide receivers there. Apparently Saquon Barkley now part of that as well. And Sterling Shepard, a name that you were just talking about, he really has been the most consistent the last few years, but coming off that injury in 2021, how did he look today?
Well, what's very interesting about Sterling Shepard, and our researcher Garrett pointed this out to me, that he is the longest tenured Giant on this team at 7 years. So that just tells you just the amount of turnover that there is on this team. But I did have a chance to talk to him today just to kind of get a feel of where he is coming off of that Achilles injury week 15. He told me that he's taking it day by day. He was on the stretching board, getting worked out there. He did start to jog for the first time last week, so that is a positive sign. He told me that the team is not putting any pressure on him as far as when he's coming back, because you can feel good and then you can have some regression there. Obviously, he doesn't want to have anything pop, but I think it's a positive sign for him that he's getting to move. He said he's been out at practice every day, obviously watching, taking mental reps, taking the ball off the jug machine. It's just a matter of when he can get out there fully and practice with the team. He said not to give a timeline because he doesn't want to give the Giants fan base too much of a, like a exact date to hang on to. But I believe that we should have, something happen obviously before camp starts.
That's great, and Giants fans, I'm sure, happy to see him out there, even if it just is those mental reps. That's definitely important to them. Josina, thank you so much holding it down for us at Giants. OTA is now mandatory minicamp. That's going to be running June 7th through the 9th. And if you're craving a little bit more football, you got to look no further than our Pick 6 podcast. Our guys, they get you up to speed in about 30 minutes each day with whatever is trending in the NFL. So give them a listen and follow along today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.